Okay.
Sure.
We are now recording, and hello, Miss Jennifer, and hello, my beautiful son, Eric.
Hello, hello.
We
I
just had a
love
radio
you.
show. I love you too. We just had a radio show last night with
Yeah.
Jennifer, and here we are again, together again. And Eric, you did such a great job answering people's questions. And of course, Jennifer, you did such a wonderful job channeling him. You guys need to check her out at psychicmediumjenniferdoran.com, but I will put that at the end as well. All right, so today I thought we'd go ahead and talk about, I think blog member recommended this, but how to see yourself as perfect, because we are, believe it or not, and how to find and love your authentic self. I think it all starts, right, with finding your authentic self so that you see that you are lovable and perfect. But I will
Yes.
let Eric let you take the floor.
Yeah, so what Eric is saying is like a lot of other things when we come into a human body we're are filtered out so we can't see them. So we can't, we don't know. We have this like amnesia, this human amnesia thing. And seeing ourselves as perfect is another one of those things that happens because when we're on the other side, we do see that. We see our souls as perfect, just the way they are, even though he says, even though we're still learning and we're still trying, um, we see ourselves as perfect, but that is blocked from us because if it weren't there, he says, really, if you could all see yourselves as perfect in every moment, he says you wouldn't need to be there. You wouldn't need to be
That's
there. It's
true.
part of the
You're like,
human
I don't got
process.
no lessons to learn. It
Yeah.
becomes like that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's, he says, when you're learning something, if you feel like everything's perfect, there's no, like over here, he says, we learn at a much slower rate. We learn from this happiness and love. And, it's like not this urgency to understand something. There's not this drive, which because of the length of time that you live for,
Mm-hmm.
you are need to be more driven. So he says, it's not that you can't see yourselves as perfect. But what he's saying is that you're not meant to see it all the time. You are meant to kind of go back and forth.
All
There's
right, so well, we do have flaws, though, don't we? I mean, I know I do.
well, we have challenges.
Okay.
So
I like that. It's not a flaw.
yeah,
It's so
it's a
my clumsiness
challenge.
is a challenge,
Yeah.
mostly for everybody around me, but okay. So I get that.
Yeah, so you know what he's saying is it's more that you're perfect for what knowledge you have and where you're at in that space and time. Perfect, he says, perfect doesn't mean you know everything and you've learned all your lessons and you don't need to
Okay,
learn
what is it?
anymore.
What is
It's
perfect?
it's
I mean, maybe there's a different definition over there and a different definition over here. If
yes.
so, can you give us both?
So what he's saying is like if for instance, if you're somebody who is struggling with bipolar,
Mm-hmm.
okay, he says in that space and time that you're in, you are perfect because this is what you're supposed to be doing so others can learn from you so that you can learn and grow. That's perfect right there for
It's a
for that.
perfect lesson.
Yes, for that moment in time. So we may feel like he says you may feel like as humans like you're just a train wreck, a hot mess or something, but in that space and time you're perfect because that may be exactly where you need to be to learn the lessons or to teach.
Yeah. Well, what about
um
serial killers? They're not, how can you say that they're not, I mean, that they're perfect? I guess
well,
the same thing. I mean, they still challenges for,
he says, as hard as this is to believe, serial killers serve a purpose.
yeah.
If you are on the other side and want to experience being murdered by a serial killer, well, guess what?
Well, why would you want to do that?
Another experience, another human experience. Murder is part of the human experience. Being murdered is part of the human experience.
Yeah, but
And
what would you
again,
gain from it? What exactly would you gain? I mean, I know we're here to remember every facet of love
yes.
by experiencing its opposite. So how does murder play into that?
Um, okay, so well, he's saying it's for the person actually being murdered, it's a quick, this is a quick experience. The whatever, the fear, the terror, the it sometimes, he says, in a passing like that, it changes the crossing over. Sometimes the crossing over is a little bit different. He says, so that's a very short thing. He says a lot of times a situation like that is more about the people who are left behind.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay,
Okay.
that makes sense.
So the family of the murder victim, whether
Yeah,
there's a trial, whether it goes to a cold case and it's never solved, there's
yeah.
a lot to be learned there. For the victim, he says it's a quick, it's a quick
They're just
experience.
the uh like in the science lab, you make a
Yeah.
volcano that erupts. Okay, they're the erupting volcano for the class to learn from.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
don't know why I came up with that one. Okay, so what would the people left behind possibly learn? I mean, maybe forgiveness. Oh,
For
that's really a hard one. And
yes,
what else?
forgiveness. Forgiveness would be a big one. Um,
Loss. Yeah,
yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. Loss, like just like any other type of loss.
yeah,
There is something to be learned. um loss is loss, but traumatic loss,
yeah. Tell me about
um
it.
there is something to be learned
Yeah.
about hatred there,
Hmm.
because a lot of people might experience hatred towards the murderer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be learned um
Fear,
from
maybe.
that.
It could probably
Oh yes,
create a lot of
that's
fear in.
absolutely. Fear. um you could create like agoraphobia, like all this kind of PTSD. It could spiral out and create a whole lot of other issues.
Okay.
But forgiveness is a big one.
Yeah.
um if you can ever get to that. And also he says, like, when murders go unsolved, that's another whole
Oh,
lesson,
yeah.
because
What is that?
it's just this unanswered questions, these this that
Surrender? Maybe just letting
yes,
go of
loss of
control?
control. Yes,
Yeah.
loss of control. He says for anybody dealing with something like that, he says you do eventually get your answers on the other side. You do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anybody dealing with something like that, you get your answers on the other side. That might not
Woo!
be very comforting
Yeah.
right now, but you do eventually get your answers.
So I guess
Um,
the deal is that, if you have this fear or hatred, anger, all these things, are we supposed to somehow turn that flip that into the love side of the equation?
yeah. So
I mean,
so
otherwise it's just a waste, isn't it?
it's not a waste. It's not a waste. But what Eric is saying is that with every situation,
Hmm.
if you're coming at something from a fear base, and that's really fear and love, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
everything falls into fear or love. He says it
Yes.
all falls into fear or love. So if you're coming at something, anything, approaching it from a fear based area, he says it's not that you're doing anything bad or wrong, but the idea is always to take the fear base and find a way to come at it from love. It's always healthier for us as humans. It's
Yeah.
always more productive. Um, fear-based stuff is where depression and anxiety,
Hmm.
illness, all that stuff kind of comes from.
All the
Um,
crap. I think in one of the books, maybe My Son in the Afterlife, there is something about fear and love. And I think we had columns of, okay, here's all the fear stuff and here's the love counterparts, but I can't remember. You
yeah,
guys put it in the
yeah, and
comments
that's
if you remember that.
exactly what he's saying. So the idea when we come here is to learn to live in love. It truly is
Yes.
living in love. That's where we would feel our perfection and this. But he says we cannot always remain, and we can't, as humans, we cannot remain always there. We're supposed to feel both.
Yeah.
But learning to take the fear and turn it to love is a huge thing. We don't always do it, and sometimes we bring those lessons into the next life, or we work on those lessons on the other side.
Uh-huh.
So he says what you want to do is, if you're living in a fear-based area, is You want to forgive yourself. You want to say, okay, this is okay. Like, maybe these
I'm
are my
human.
patterns. Yes, these are my patterns of behavior. This is either who I am by nature or who I am by nurture. And see how you can shift it. See how you can accept who you are right then and there. But then moving forward, what can I do differently
Just
to feel
perspective.
better? To
Tweak
yes,
tweak that perspective. You
yes,
know?
yes, yeah. But the more that as humans, the more we belittle ourselves and berate ourselves and focus on what may be our challenges and focus on them as shortcomings and I'm not good enough. This is not. This
Yeah.
is heavy energy.
Oh yeah.
So if you're doing that, you've got to change your narrative because you've
Yes.
got to change the way you think about yourself and talk about yourself. You know, people are dealing with a lot of stuff. If you're, dealing with weight or your sexuality or your, whatever your how you look, your appearance, you feel like you're a very selfish or jealous person. He says it's okay. You acknowledge those things and then put into play how you're going to
Learn from
feel
it.
better about it. Not that you even have to, change anything.
Yeah.
Your perspective that needs to be changed. Like I am good enough like I am.
Yeah. Interesting. So how do we lose our authentic self? Do we come in as our
Yeah,
authentic self as little
no,
babies? No? No.
no,
Okay, okay.
he says we don't get to come here with that. We're it's blocked from us. Because
Okay.
even no matter how much we can live in love and, you know, we kind
Uh-oh. You froze. And I probably froze for you too. Zoom has been
of,
oh, there we
there
go. Good, 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 good.
yes, we're back.
Okay,
Um,
sorry.
so we still are never as humans able to attain what we attain on the other side.
Yeah, of course not.
So that's kind of really more, he says, where our authentic self is.
Okay.
Just that blinders, those blinders that we have
I
as humans.
know.
But
Sucks.
gratitude, focusing on giving to others and selflessness. These are ways to kind of reach that.
Mm.
um
Okay, so yeah,
Feeling.
so if you have some challenges, flaws, whatever you want to call them, you can just write them down. Oh, sometimes I'm selfish. I feel like sometimes I was like petty in this way and blah, blah. And then on the other side, try to, see what you can do to shift your
Yeah,
perspective and, even counterbalance it with something on the
yeah,
left side. So
yes.
oh, go ahead.
Well, what he was saying is like, as when you live in a society, there is this natural tendency to compare. Like
Yeah.
we're just, it's just natural. it's
Yeah.
it's it's human nature to feel comparing yourself to others. And and we're raised that way with society. And so he says it's really, if you can realize that for the most part nobody else really gives a shit what you're doing.
Really.
like they truly don't. Like if you're trying to better yourself, yes, people are going to talk and be judgmental and do stuff, but truly people tend to be more self-centered
Of
and more
course.
focused on themselves.
What's the
So
purpose
he
of
says,
that? What's the purpose of a human, of it being human nature to compare, categorize, sort, etc.? Why?
well, it, it's because he says it does help create like society rules, like of
Ah,
acceptable
okay.
behavior.
Oh, well, that's
So he
true.
says initially it was designed to create behaviors that were like keep you alive, like in a group, keep everybody alive. if
Oh, yeah.
if one person went around stealing everything from everybody else, well, everybody else was going to die because they didn't have enough to eat. So
Yeah.
it was designed really initially, he says, to like keep us alive. But it just, now it's just gotten to the point where it's like, well, they have a nicer car and they have a better education. And
What does it serve
um
a good purpose as far as contrast for the human experience is
oh,
concerned?
absolutely, he says, because really, sometimes comparing yourself to others can make you, reach for more.
Yeah, that's
It,
true.
make you be like, you know what, I am capable of so much more. There's no reason I can't get my master's degree. There's no reason I can't, and
Yeah.
so yes, it can be a wonderful thing as long as it doesn't obsess you.
Oh yeah. But also if you don't like begrudge their having what you don't
Yes.
have, because that's just gonna eat away at your heart.
Yes.
All right, so then what makes us get farther and farther away as time goes on from our authentic self? And then we'll talk about ways to rediscover, or at least as close as possible, your authentic self. But what
Yeah.
first, what makes us
So
drift away?
yeah, so you're right. When we come in, we are a bit closer to the authentic self because we don't have or don't have many of those bad human habits or, you know,
Yes,
lower level
society.
human habits.
Yes. Yeah.
And they just develop the longer that we're here. We're exposed to more of the, Earth's lower vibration,
Hmm.
the denser energy, depending on what experiences we have. That's what pushes us further and further away. It's, oh, there's that. Oh, there's he's talking about it. It's like I don't know it exactly, but that boiling water like softens a potato, but it makes an egg hard. So it's like
Oh,
it's
wow.
how you take your experiences and what you do with them. So one person may get hardened by a certain experience where somebody else may find compassion and
Oh,
forgiveness and soften.
yeah.
So that's, he says, it's what you do with your experiences. It's what
Yeah.
if somebody's heart gets broken in a romantic relationship and they say, that's it, I'm done, I'm never, you know, going to have a relationship again. Well, that is truly moving further and further away from your authentic self.
Yes. Right.
If your best friend does something and you don't trust them anymore, and then you say, well, I'm never trusting anybody. Well,
Mm,
that's, it's how you react to your
yeah.
circumstances, is what he says.
And it seems like we are raised or raising kids um, to become approval seekers, and I say this in my parenting books, like we're pack animals, and you got
Yes.
at least two ways to to feel a sense of belonging to a pack. You can beg for it, pretty much conform to the standards that they want you to conform to, and then you're always going to be looking for the pack's approval, always shaping your identity to be what they want you to be, what society wants you to be, what your
Mm-hmm.
siblings and your parents, etc. Or you can get a sense of belonging by contributing something unique and meaningful to the pack.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, you don't have to ask shit from nobody. You can really be your real self, and you can depend on your inner compass instead of having this external compass to
Yes,
guide
it's
you through life.
like seeking like your value
Yeah.
externally.
Yeah.
If they approve of this, that must mean I'm a good person.
I
That sort of thing.
know.
Yes, that all that work has to be done internally because Eric is saying is if you can do that internally, if you can feel comfortable with who you are and okay with where you're at in life, you
Uh-oh, frozen again. Oh,
yes
sorry.
oh no, it's
I
fine.
don't know what's going on. I probably need to
um
just restart my computer or something. I don't know.
uh, yeah.
So yeah, so suppose we are, I mean, all of us are approval seekers to at least some degree. How can we get rid of that? We've been raised to by, society says wear this kind of lipstick and do that and listen to this music, and your parents tell you you got to be a lawyer, or how do you unzip yourself from that approval seeking suit?
self he says that's all self-esteem. It's all self-esteem and feeling good enough and feeling whole on your own,
Yeah.
no matter what you're going through. Now, he says, you still are going to need approval from other people. If you're in a partnership, if you're in a relationship, and you want to take this new job that's going to move you halfway across the
Oh
country,
yeah.
well, that's something that you've got to discuss and figure out if that's the
Yeah, but
best
you don't
for
have
you.
to change who you are to achieve that,
Correct.
right? That's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And the biggest thing about that, what you just said about changing who you are, he says a lot of times people end up in bad situations, work or living situations, relationships, because they initially try to change who they are to fit
Oh,
with society. So he says, if you're somebody, let's just use dating, and you meet somebody and you put up this front to begin with.
Oh, they're gonna find out eventually.
Yes, and that's a big source of problems, is trying to change who you are when you first meet people.
Yeah.
You just be who you are always, and then you don't have as many of these struggles.
Yeah,
But
on the
people
dating sites,
try
don't
to
say you
conform.
weigh 120 pounds when you're 220.
Yes.
They're gonna find
Yes.
out.
Yep.
So, okay, any practical tips to tell people out there how to not need people's approval or society's approval? How to get rid of that addiction?
Yes. So working on your self-esteem and working on your self-awareness,
Yeah, but what comes
connecting.
first, the chicken or the egg? I mean,
Well, he says this, you can do all, it doesn't, one doesn't have to come before the other.
oh,
Because
okay.
it's not like, as humans, he says, you guys always think that everything, yes, is like do one, then two,
Oh,
then three, then four. Well,
yeah,
sometimes you can be working on 1 through 4 at the same time.
that's
Okay,
true.
it's not always so linear. Most of what we
Yeah,
do is linear. But
yeah, exactly.
oh
Yeah.
no, are you frozen again?
Uh-oh. God.
Oh,
Well, we're
yeah.
almost finished. It's okay. We can make it.
Okay. So you work on self-awareness. If you're struggling in your life, really, truly, truly sit down and see what patterns keep repeating. If it's, you get a job and you hate it. Well, do you need a career change? Do you need to go back to school? What could you do differently moving forward to change the energy of what you've gotten in the past? If you
Yeah.
constantly pick the wrong partner and you end up being abused, or you end up with an addict or something, what is it that you're doing? What can you do differently? And you really have to say, what am I doing that's drawing this energy? And that's not easy.
I
Sometimes
know.
it's not
Like in,
easy
in my case,
to
I've got
look
this.
at
I'm sorry.
oh no, to look at our behavior.
Yeah.
If you have truly have some people that you love, that you trust, you can ask them, like,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
do you
I don't
see?
want your approval, but
Yes, but what energy am I putting out there that is drawing that to me, that you can see? You got to have thick skin for that, and it's got to truly be people you trust. Okay,
oh,
not
yeah.
somebody I met a month ago and are like,
No,
hey, what am I doing
not the
that's
bus
causing this?
driver. I know.
Yes.
So
And
in my case, one of my big threads is betrayal. I mean, I love doing things for people, and then not always, but every once in a while, somebody just um, I get punched in the gut with a betrayal.
yes.
So what, Eric, is that? What energy? And obviously, it takes two to tango. What energy am I giving out that attracts that kind of experience?
So one of the things that he is saying to me is about being discerning with
Mm,
where you put that trust.
yeah.
Okay.
Read people better,
Well,
I
it's
guess, or intuition.
yeah.
I
So
don't know. I mean, I loved
some
my sister. I did. We were best friends, and then she betrayed me at the end, and now we're estranged. I never saw that one coming at all.
yeah,
So
yeah.
why? How could I have even predicted that? Maybe sometimes it is just all
It
about the other person too. I guess.
yes. Sometimes it is, but like moving forward, he says, moving forward, a situation like that, you could be more discerning. Maybe get to know the people a little bit more first before you
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
put trust in them, or
Yeah.
but also he says you do really well as far as not like, you become more the potato than the hard-boiled egg.
Yeah.
It doesn't you don't put totally blocks up there. You're
Oh
still
no,
put
no.
yourself out
It's
there.
too much energy.
So part of this, he says, for you is that your others are to learn from you, about how.
Oh. Okay.
Yes. Um,
Okay. That makes
so
me feel better.
it's not a bad thing. Yeah, it's not a bad thing, but yes, discerning is the word he uses.
No, just give them the cliff notes. Here, don't
Yeah.
betray me. Cliff notes, cliff notes, cliff notes,
Yes.
Smoky notes. What do they call it? All right. So that's so. I guess really being emotionally honest with yourself and emotionally honest with others by talking to people who love you and you trust those are really two good steps, right? I mean,
Yes.
how many of you guys can look in and say, why do I want that person to love me so much? Why do I feel like I need to change to get that love? You
Yes.
know?
And he says flat out, not everybody is designed to be able to do this.
Well,
You're
yeah.
just not. He says, if you are somebody, or if you know somebody, let's put it this way, if you know somebody who falls a bit more into the victim personality, this
Hmm.
is going to be very, very difficult for them. Very,
Oh,
very
yeah.
difficult,
If
because
it's
it's
everybody
very,
else's fault, yeah,
yes,
they can't be emotionally honest with
yes,
themselves. That's all about
correct,
rationalization,
yes,
justification, blame shifting, all that stuff. And I'm telling you, the more you do that, the farther and farther away you'll get from your authentic
yes.
self. So,
And
it takes courage
yep,
in vulnerability.
yes.
Vulnerability.
And
Have it lead life with an open heart, and that actually, what's easier than you think, guys. I mean, it's almost like a relief. Like when I do something stupid and I have to apologize, oh God, I don't want to apologize. But when I do, I feel
yeah,
so much better. It's a relief.
yes, absolutely. And again, that's, we learn from difficulties, we learn from challenges, we learn from struggles. So
Hmm.
when you do something that requires an apology, yes, it's difficult and it's hard and it's humbling, and there's a lesson there. But he says raising your vibration is another way. If your vibration is very high, you're automatically going to be self-aware.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So anything that you can do to raise your vibration, focusing on the positive,
yeah.
whatever that looks like for you. Sometimes if I'm feeling kind of bummed, I look at, puppies and kittens on the internet,
Oh, I know. I love
kind
that
of
too.
boost that, like serotonin,
Yeah.
music, dancing, exercise, all these things that raise our vibration. If you are focusing on a daily basis, meditation of raising your vibration, all this other stuff is going to fall into place.
Oh, that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
all of you out there, you need to ask, wow, in this situation, am I being a victim? Am I being honest with myself? Do I have any part to play? I mean, from my childhood, I used to just feel all sorry for myself for a long, long time. Um, my parents were so mean to me. They beat me and all that stuff. But then I looked at it as a an experience full of teachable moments. And that
Yes.
was when I could say, I'm not the pawn on the chessboard anymore. I am the chess player, moving those pawns around. I am in charge of my life. Nobody's going to take my power away. It's my power. I own it. And here's what I got from it. So hopefully you guys can do the same thing in less time than it took me, please.
uh, yes. And it's a work in progress.
Mm.
It's
We got to be
it's
patient with ourselves. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's no rush for any of
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
So
we're eternal beings. Come
yes.
on. So, anything else that will help us? Like I say, I think the key to finding as much as you can your authentic self is to have the courage to be vulnerable with yourself and others, have an open heart, be emotionally honest with yourself and others. And are there any other tips?
Yeah,
The
that's
practical stuff like write down in column A, write down in
yeah.
anything.
What Eric is saying is that, like, when you're being honest with yourself, make a mental note or write down the areas that you're sensitive in.
Mm,
If you have abandonment issues, know that anytime you go into a situation, you're going to be hypersensitive to abandonment. If you
yeah,
have trust issues, anytime you go into a situation, you're going to be hypersensitive to not trusting.
yeah.
So know what your areas are that are challenges, and try to look at situations. In any situation, nobody sees it the same. Okay, we
Oh,
all
that's
have our own
true.
perspective. So are you being overly sensitive in this area? Could the person have meant something in a different way? And the more we can just kind of let go of the intention behind things, we can stay in that higher vibration. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who always thinks that your spouse is cheating on you, or your partner is cheating on you, know that when they're 20 minutes late, 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 20 minutes from work, even though you trust them and you know they're not cheating, you're going to feel like, oh, are they cheating? It's going to be your insecurity. It's not their
Yeah.
issue. So
Yeah.
own your challenges. Don't put them on others is another really good way to do it, because then you're going to see everybody doing stuff to you that they're
Oh God,
probably
I
not doing.
know.
You
Everybody's
know?
against me. That's
Yes,
paranoia.
absolutely.
All right. So, what was one other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, can you give us a specific example? Um, well, you did the trust one. What's another one? So that we can put some meat on the bone, so to speak,
A specific example of what?
of, having something you have trouble with. Or like somebody is afraid that everybody's going to betray them. How do they change their perspective? How do they live differently and see things differently, etc., to regain their power and one step closer, of course, to their authentic self?
Yeah, this is another good one that Erik is saying. It's good to ask other people. Like, hey, what if you're feeling betrayed in a situation? Maybe bring the situation to somebody else and say, other than betrayal, what could that other person's motive have been?
Oh,
Like, why else? Because we have tunnel vision as humans, so
mm,
we'll see things, but somebody else who's not connected to the situation may see three or four other things that could have been behind the way that
yeah.
person. So getting yourself out of just your own perspective and trying to understand, like, what could that other person have been doing? Why could this have been happening? What other reasoning could have been behind that?
What, can you talk to the person themselves too? I mean,
Oh
sometimes
yes,
their intention is
absolutely.
totally different than what you
Completely
thought.
different. Yes.
I mean, sometimes
Completely
it's
different.
not, but
Yes,
but
true. Yes.
yeah.
So yes, if you're comfortable enough, you go right to the person. I know I've said this on a video before, but Erik is telling me again to bring it up. There was a book, and I can't remember the book, but it was talking about really not truly understanding what is going on with somebody else. And it was a woman, and she was on a commuter train, traveling a decent distance, and she was getting annoyed with this man and his young child. I can't remember if it was a young son or daughter, but like a 3 or 4 year old. And the man was just letting the child run up and down the aisles, and kind of being loud. And she finally went over and said something to the man, that the child was being disruptive, and could he please get him under control. And the man said, oh, I apologize, my wife just passed away, and we're bringing her body home. The woman,
Oh God, I
yes.
know.
And so the woman was like, I felt terrible, but
Yeah.
in her head she was like, this is a bad father, this kid is undisciplined.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when
Oh
she
wow.
actually found out where the person was coming from, it completely changed the situation.
Oh my God.
And so that Erik says that's very relevant here. You don't
Well,
really
here's another
know.
one that's a little bit lighter. So this lady just had a baby, and so she's been breastfeeding the child. So she goes to the grocery store, and well, she buys all sorts of stuff, and then she hears another baby crying, and you know what that makes your
Yes.
milk leak, and you're going like, she's going like this. Oh my God, people are gonna notice, and they're gonna. It's so embarrassing. And the guy behind her taps on her shoulder, says, "Excuse me, miss, your milk is leaking." And she was horrified. But then he points to
Yes.
the gallon of milk that was in her car was
Oh.
leaking. Oh,
Yes,
that's funny. Anyway, I just thought
that is
I'd just
funny.
follow up with a lighter one.
Yes.
Um, all right, what makes it so difficult to apologize? I mean, I struggle too. I mean, like, we all have egos, I guess. I mean, like,
Yeah, ego.
oh, people are gonna
Yes.
find out I messed up. Oh, is it that?
Yes. It's embarrassment, it's fear, it's you
They're gonna think
know,
I'm less than.
it's ego. Yes. Yes. It's all of that stuff. And it depends also on how you're brought up. If you're raised where mistakes are not acceptable,
Oh yeah,
then it can be terrifying to
yeah,
have to apologize, to admit that you were wrong.
yeah.
But it's mostly ego. None of us want to be wrong, you know.
Yeah. Well, I try to teach my grandkids, is it good to make mistakes? And they'll say, no. Yes, it is. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
why.
How
But
you learn.
if you're so afraid to apologize because you think that person, you're going to admit that you're wrong and they're going to think less of you, that's giving them power. Your power that
Yes.
you should have. That's
Yes.
you. That's you own that.
Well, and Eric is saying if you don't ever apologize, it's actually really very detrimental to you. If you don't apologize when you have wronged somebody, he says it's like that stays in you. Like you really
Yeah.
don't let that go. You really
Yeah.
don't move past it. You just kind of shove it down and ignore it.
Yeah.
But you don't let that go.
And it stays with the other person too, and it does
Yes.
something. It just takes a little bit out of the
Yep.
relationship, trust wise, for
Yes.
example.
Yes,
All right,
absolutely.
I don't have any other questions. Do you have anything else you want to add, you or Jennifer? You?
No, no.
Okay, well, that's it then. You guys go check her out at psychic medium jenniferdoran.com, which I'll put right here. I find it on maybe because I see a frame that's doing like this. All right, thank you very much, Eric. I love you. Jennifer, I love you.
Love
Until
you.
next
Love you.
time,
Bye bye.
bye.